Maybe I made the wrong decision this time around. Maybe I shouldn't have voted for Kamala Harris. Maybe I should have voted for Trump. Maybe next time I will for somebody else. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know about J.D. Vance because I remember those extreme positions he took, but I wouldn't hesitate to vote for Marco Rubio in a heartbeat. That's reasonable.
We got to talk about Stephen A. Smith today because there has been some speculation, some talks about Stephen A. possibly running for president. Yeah, I know. Crazy, right? But I came across this video clip from the Jason Whitlock show. Shout out to Jason Whitlock. And he's on with, I believe this guy's name is Marcellus Wiley, if I remember correctly, is his name? Yeah, Marcellus Wiley. And they kind of go into it a little bit, and I just want to talk about it with y'all because their discussion actually reveals some things that I didn't even know. So with that being said, let's dive in.
Stephen A. Smith apparently wants to be president or is making noise like he wants to be president. I wanted to know what you think. Could Stephen A. Smith be president of the United States? And what does it say about America, American culture, that he's even in the discussion?
He absolutely could become president of the United States. Now, if he runs as a Democrat, which I assume he is, even though if you listen to him, a lot of times moderate, sounding independent, sometimes even conservative, I don't know, but I think he's going to go Democrat. That's a pretty weak pool. All indications, it's a pretty weak pool. I mean, it's led still by Harris, and a lot of people are saying, or is she going to get your vote this time if she didn't get your vote last time? The Republican side looks a lot stronger, you know, with J.D. Vance, et cetera. But this is why I think he can, and this is why I hope he's not. I think he can because Stephen A. Smith knows how to gather and rile up emotions. And if you're going to be the president, what you need to do is, one, be able to gather the people, and an emotional charge is the best way to gather them. But two, you got to be in a position where you can delegate. And you're not sitting there answering every question, doing everything. You're presidential. You just got to present yourself as the boss. And then from there, have the right people that you can delegate to that are smart and that can make those decisions. So, Stephen.
I mean, in a way, he's right. Joe Biden wasn't running the government not long ago. It was other people, right? According to what we had speculated, and according to some new information now, I believe it came out of the Liar in Chief, Jake Tapper's book. There were some other folks running the government, basically. It wasn't Joe, which we all knew. So, I mean, technically, he ain't wrong. We've already seen
They
it.
can certainly do that. And candidly, I know that he's making some of those moves with some top people that we have in common. I'm like, yo, if he has that team with him, oh, he's going to kill it. Because you know he's going to win the rallies. He's going to win the debates, etc. Here's why I don't want him. And every now and then, Jason, I even say I sound like a hater, but oh, well, it's the truth. I don't like panderers. And there are too many times he panders. And the last thing I want to see is Stephen A. Smith having that power, second black president, pandering to my people, to the people, because all it's going to do is be harmful for all of us, including the people he's pandering for. And I hate it. It just totally gives you the handicap sticker that you don't need. It puts you in some bubble that you don't need to be in. And I don't want him to do that. So if he can make a promise, an oath, that he would stop the pandering part, everything else, I think, checks the box. I think.
I disagree with everything else checking the box, but I do agree with the pandering being a hindrance and not a benefit, right? Because you guys know the old saying, give a man a fish, right, versus teaching a man how to fish. Pandering is giving somebody a fish. They're going to keep coming back to you. But if you teach them how to fish, now they can sustain on their own. Sometimes tough love is the best love. I always used to say, you know, you can really tell a difference between your associates and your best friends. Your best friends are always going to tell you what you need to hear. Your associates or just casual friends in passing, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. I don't want people in my life or around me that tell me what I want to hear. Tell me what I need to hear, even when I don't want to hear it. Tell me what I need to hear, because that's going to be way more beneficial than you just telling me, oh yeah, everything is fine when everything ain't fine. Oh, I'll just give you everything for the rest of your life. Yeah, and how was that making me a better person? Because now I'm dependent upon you to give me everything. What happens when I upset you? Or what happens when you're no longer there anymore? Now I'm back to square one, right? And that's why I'm not the biggest fan of Stephen A. because he's right. He's just a pander in chief.
I think he can do it. But I'm more interested in hearing what you think, because I know it's going to be a little different.
Hold for 1 second, though. You've said something fascinating that I don't think I've heard anyone else say. And particularly with you having gone and graduated from an Ivy League school, that puts you in rooms and connects you to people at the center of American power, at the center of global power. And you just said at the beginning of that, Stephen A. is making connections with those people and is working. Could you just expound on that? You don't got to drop names, but it sounds like you know and believe like, no, he's serious about this and is making those types of connections.
Yes. To protect the guilty, because all this hasn't come to fruition just yet, there are some uber powerful people that have not only tremendous wealth, but also political power that are working behind the scenes to find next candidates. And I know that Stephen A. Smith is in connection with them. I'm in connection with them, but not for the candidacy, but our relationship. And I know that if Stephen A. Smith were to work with these people, they have put presidents in the office before. And let's just say they had a lesser Q rating, a lower Q rating than Stephen A. Smith does right now. They weren't as popular, they weren't as polished, and they were able to get them across the line. So if Stephen A. Smith, that's why he always qualifies it. He's like, look, I have no interest, but I got to keep my options open, because he knows he qualifies. And by qualifying, maybe you'll have a change of heart if enough of those opinions finally are internalized and you say, let's go. But here's the problem for Stephen A. Smith and everybody, and this is why, in general, it's a weak pool. Therefore, he could win. The process of becoming any elected official, let alone the president, destroys whoever you are in character and morality. They will find or make up the worst things about you. Therefore, the best of us don't want to go through that process, and you're left with a lesser pool of candidates. So it's a compliment to be in the running, but at the same time, we got to know what this really is. We are getting rid of all of the PhD, Ivy League, MIT, top brains, people who have invested, social activists in the community. All those people who could do it and probably are better qualified are not doing it because they like their life. They like to live in a positive existence. So then you just get a lesser pool. And I think that Stephen A. Smith certainly qualifies to win based off the names I see out there. I would say J.D. Vance is the number one, but outside of him, I think Stephen A. Smith could beat them all.
I don't think Stephen A. Smith could beat them all. Could he beat the Democrats? Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I think if there was a panel with Stephen A. Smith, Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Josh Shapiro, Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, I think that's about it. That pool of people, do I think Stephen A. Smith could come out on top? Yeah. He knows how to talk. Right? And he also doesn't have a bad track record to look back at and to scrutinize, right? Like Gavin Newsom does, right? We can look at California and see how that's been run and be like, nah, no thanks, right? We can look at Pete Buttigieg and see what he's done and be like, nah, I don't want that. Same thing with Kamala, right? And so on and so on. Stephen A. Smith doesn't have that. So he kind of has a little bit of a leg up there. But in terms of beating Republicans, nah. He ain't beating J.D. Vance. Even somebody who I keep mentioning, but I never hear anybody else mentioning, Stephen A. Smith couldn't even beat Larry Elder. Yeah. Imagine Stephen A. Smith going toe-to-toe with Larry Elder on a debate stage. Who do you think's coming out on top with that one? It's a rhetorical question. We all know Larry Elder's coming out on top. We have watched Larry Elder dismantle people's arguments in terms of politics. Now, of course, we talk about sports. Stephen A. Smith, he got that. That's what he does on a daily basis. But politics, no, Larry Elder is mopping the floor with this guy. Mopping the floor with him. And like I said, he ain't beating J.D. Vance, and he darn sure ain't beating Larry Elder. Larry Elder is a guy that I have yet to see anybody else be able to recall statistics. Maybe the only other person is Thomas Sowell. Shout out to Thomas Sowell. I hope he's still doing well. I wish Thomas Sowell was young enough to run for president, because boy, would he be a phenomenal candidate. But Thomas Sowell is like the only other person that I've seen that's able to recall statistics like that. I mean, in whatever moment, they can just bring up, well, in this situation, blah, 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 boom. And in this situation, blah, 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 boom. And it completely dismantles other people's arguments. It is absolutely mind-boggling, the numbers and statistics they both have in their brains that they can just bring up like that. It's crazy. And in a debate, that will destroy somebody else's debate when they start talking a bunch of nonsense. So yeah, I don't think Stephen A can just be anybody and everybody. Do I think he could come out on top on the Democrat side? Yeah, he could very well be the Democrat nominee. Do I think a lot of Democrats will vote for him? No, not now. Not now. That is not where the Democrat Party is. Do I think the Democrat Party will eventually get to where Stephen A. Smith is? Because I fully believe Stephen A. Smith is a Democrat through and through. He might try to play this game like, oh yeah, I'll vote for Marco Rubio, which I ain't the biggest fan of Marco Rubio either, although he has been doing a fantastic job so far in the Trump administration. But I still remember the past Marco Rubio, and I'm just, it gives me a cause to pause. But yeah, I don't see Stephen A. Smith actually garnering the votes in a general election against a J.D. Vance or a Larry Elder or whoever else is the Republican nominee. But I personally believe it's going to be either one of those two if Larry Elder chooses to run, which I think he should personally. But that's neither here nor there. I don't see Democrats voting for Stephen A. because he's not super far left, but he's a little closer to the center than where most Democrats, the Democrat voting base currently is. So he wouldn't win. They'll get there eventually, but it's going to take until after the 2030 general election for them to get there. The midterms, they're probably going to lose. The 2030 general election, they're going to lose. And then after that, I think that's when the Democrat Party will start to reach where Stephen A. Smith is. If this is the center, Stephen A. Smith is to the left of that. He ain't far left. He ain't way off the screen, right? He on the screen, but he ain't center, even though he tries to portray that he is. And yeah, I don't see Democrat voters voting for that. But that's just my humble opinion. You guys can let me know yours. Make sure you guys hit that like button to help out with the YouTube algorithm as always. And leave a comment because those help out too. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in as always. Peace and love. I'm out.